Thank you for joining us today at Homestead for Life. Today we are making one of my favorite foods, pulled pork, and we are going to can it. There are two ways to can pulled pork. We are going to do it the cold pack method today. Check back with us in a few weeks. We'll do another one with the hot pack method. So cold pack method is fairly straightforward, just like any other, your chickens and beefs and things like that, not ground beef. Ground beef cannot be cold packed. So we have cut up our meat pieces. We have gotten as much of the fat as we reasonably can get off of it. Something to keep in mind, the more fat is on there, the faster it's going to go rancid. So this is something, good pulled pork has all kinds of fat on it. So this is something that is not going to stay good for terribly, terribly long. You're going to get a few months out of it. I don't know what that magic number is because everyone's fat ratio is going to be different. Everyone's storage situation is going to be different, okay? But pulled pork for a few months, it will probably not last that long in this house. We are going to season it a little bit before we pack it. Now keep in mind your seasonings when you're pressure canning are going to get supercharged, so be easy on your seasonings. The seasonings I'm using, the last time I found this recipe online for the seasoning mix, plus or minus a couple things. I didn't add an orange, but that was probably one of the best pulled porks I've ever made in my life. So we've got paprika, my personal favorite, salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, adobo seasoning salt. So you can't go wrong with those things on just about anything. And then cumin, not sure what that adds to it, but it was in the recipe. I used it last time. Amazing pulled pork. So I've got some of those, whatever mixture ratio you want, but I've got some of those in my tray here, my bowl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss them a little bit in there, and then we're going to put them straight in the can, okay? So we are using wide mouth pint jars, just kind of dunking them. Oh, didn't mean to dunk both sides on that one because, again, with the supercharging, right? Now, once you take the bone out of the pork, you lose a lot of weight, and then you start cutting the fat off of it. So this was, I think, a 6-pound roast. I'll have to check the wrapper. Can't remember. And I already checked the wrapper. So can't check. We'll never know what this started out as. But we are going to fill our jars as tight as we can to 1 inch below the rim, so 1 inch a headspace. So, step one, right? I guess step two after the seasonings. Okay, now we're going to go find our stabby spatula and push all these down, make sure we've got 1 inch of headspace. Okay, so I don't have any more meat to add to this, so I redistributed a little bit to make sure I've got my 1 inch of headspace. You can see I've got a ton of air pockets in there, but that used up the whole roast, which I think was around 7 or 8 pounds based on the price. So, and this was a Memorial Day sale. So I bought a couple extra, threw them in the freezer. Stockpile when you can, when things are cheap. Then we're going to wipe off the rims of all of our jars. This is distilled white vinegar. We always want to wipe off our jars, getting seasonings off there, so that our lids will seal nice and smooth without an issue. Nothing in the way, no seasonings, no fat, no meat, no juices or debris of any kind. All right, nice wiped off rims. We're going to grab some new lids and some rings off of our caddy. And we are cold packing, so this all cold meat into cold jars into a cold canner. So we didn't have to preheat anything. Cold canning, so much easier. So much less prep work on that front. And easier to spin your lids on without burning your fingers. All right. So we ended up with 5. There is quite a bit of air and space in these jars, so probably not a full pound per jar, but that is okay. All right, so we're going to seal this, close this. Sorry, we're not sealing the pressure valve, but we're closing the lid, sealing the lid, leaving it on exhaust. And then we are going to set the pressure high to 75 minutes for pints. And I'll put in the comments below what it is for quarts. I believe it's 90, but don't quote me. I'll double check that. All right, so 75 for pints. Start, and we will come back when the pressure started building up and our 10-minute countdown starts. Now that our timer has counted down to E1, we are going to change this to airtight. And as soon as it has gotten up to that right pressure, our timer is going to start and the countdown will begin. Once the timer is up, we're going to come back and unplug it. Okay, it's just counted down to E0. But we'll come back and unplug it after the timer counts down, and then we will leave it sit for an hour. In our case, we're going to leave it sit overnight and come back and check it out tomorrow and make sure everything's sealed up. Okay, our time is up, so we unplugged our canner, and we are going to leave it for at least an hour, but we're going to end up leaving ours overnight. We're going to go to sleep and check our jars in the morning. Okay, so we are back to check our jars. And they have all popped. Fantastic. So as you can see, there's now quite a bit of water in there that was pulled out of the meat as it was processing. That's fine. So to use this, you will drain the water, grab some forks, shred the pork a little bit, and enjoy. Add barbecue sauce if you want with the seasonings. It shouldn't be necessary. But that is all there is to it. This was pretty easy, so I'm pretty excited to compare this versus the hot pack method. So we're going to do the hot pack method in a couple weeks and then try them both side by side and compare them and see if there's a big taste difference. So that's it. Pulled pork. Yum.